So, this video is specifically about communication disorders and what they are and what they look like. These disorders are specifically involving somebody and how they receive, comprehend, and convey information, feelings, and ideas. It can be how they themselves are expressing their ideas or how they are receiving and interpreting the information that is around them. As the name suggests, communication disorders specifically affects how the person affected by the disorder is interacting with people and the world around them. Further on in this video, or the main topic of this video, we are going to be discussing the categories, the classifications, and what these disorders look like in classrooms. And we're going to be giving some mild tips and tricks on what can be done to make it a well oiled and functioning classroom.
So communication disorders has two categories, specifically speech disorders and language disorders. And inside of language disorders, there's two subcategories that we'll get into later. So speech disorders involve specifically the production of speech and the quality of said voice. There's a few different types. One, the most common, is articulation disorders. It's when the person has trouble pronunciating the words. Specifically, they tend to substitute sounds, omit sounds, distort their sounds, or add different sounds. For example, if you are saying like dad, they might say da, or that's an omission. Or substitution, they might say instead of saying mom, they might say mop. Like they might just substitute different sounds in. And then there's asphyxia, which is where the child that has this disorder, it affects the way that they make the sounds themselves. So, like in their head, they might be saying everything perfectly, but when they start saying it, it comes out in like a completely different language. And then there's voice disorders, which affects the voice quality. They might have a really raspy voice or might not be able to make a lot of sound at all. So now we're moving on to language disorders. They are the other category in the communication disorders that we're talking about today. And as I mentioned before, there are two subsets. We have expressive language disorders and receptive language disorders. Expressive disorders are when the child cannot get the meaning of their words across to others. That's if they're using it in the wrong context, mixing up past, present, future, those things like that. Then receptive disorders are when the child is having a hard time understanding what is being told to them. And that could be it's a very wide range that we'll get into in the following couple of slides. So now we're moving on to the different types of language disorders. And the first one that we're starting with is phonological, which is an example of an expressive disorder because it has to do with how the child would convey their meanings. In this example, in this disorder, they cannot discriminate between certain sounds in their speech, such as pin versus pen. The I and the E are interchangeable in the eyes of the child. It is the same type of disorder with morphological. It's when they are using different structures to convey the same meaning. The child might use walk and walked for the same meaning, which is not, because one is past and one is present. Moving forward, we also have syntactical, which is another expressive disorder. It involves the order of the words or poor structure or misuse of negatives. It's basically somebody who's really bad at grammar, but it's not because they can't learn it, it's because it's how their brain is wired. The child would have to have a lot of extra practice with English and grammar. But it is expressive because it's how they express their meanings. The next two are receptive. Somatic is when they have difficulties with certain meanings of words and general meanings. So they have a hard time processing what somebody is saying. Last but not least, we have pragmatic, which is a disorder that makes it very difficult to interpret social and body language on other people. It is most commonly seen with autism or other types of special needs in that category just because of the way their brains are wired. It is not impossible to see it outside of those other disorders, but it is most commonly seen within them. Now we're going into how these communication disorders are classified. Of course, we know that they're classified by speech and language, but there's also cause and time that go into how a disorder is classified. When we look at cause, we look to see if it's organic. Were you born with it? Was it something that you had already in your genes? Or is it functional disorder where there is no real organic identifier that causes this, and it's just something that happened? Yet again, of time, we look at congenital disorder, which is at birth, or acquired, which is something you get after life. For example, you could have an acquired organic speech disorder. There's those two classifiers in front of it to tell the professionals or the people or the parents or the teachers what type of disorder it was or is. So finally, at the end of this video, we're going to give some quick tricks and tips on how to identify the signs in the classroom and what can be done to help them. First and foremost, the most common indicator is their use of language. If they struggle with pronunciation, repeat words a lot, or have trouble understanding very simple, easy directions, they might be having trouble with grammar, or they could have a communication disorder that has not been identified. This can also be seen with their early writing and reading skills if they're having trouble with that, or if they're very antisocial at a younger age, it can be that they're having trouble communicating, which can be a communication disorder. Um, some things that can be of use to these families that have uh, problems with these disorders is the support of the school and the parents to make sure the parents and the school are on the same page, and to get them in speech classrooms with pathologists so that they can start working on improving their speech and communication skills. But that's it. You can't really blame them for it. You have to be patient and you have to try to help them. You just can't say, no, you can't do that, because clearly that's wrong. And it's not something that they have control over. The best you can do is just be there and support them along their journey of getting better at communication. Um, I hope you enjoyed this small video, and I thank you for watching, and hope to see you again soon.